I just want to know whether or not they realize that that's a Senate confirmable position and we'll now be talking about Signalgate and Senate confirmation
Do you
hearings
think
for
they're
two.
smart enough to realize that? The answer
I,
is no. The answer is no.
God, yeah, but Joe Biden was too old and senile to be president, right? Anyway. Welcome back to Concepts of a Pod. We know it's been a bit since our last episode, and we appreciate your patience. A lot has happened, and it's been frustrating how little it seems Democrats have been able to do to stop it. But for anyone who's new to the show or not, who are we to be talking about this?
Hi there. My name is Shayna. I am the executive director of New Digital Now and field organizer, field staff, data analytics, targeting guru, whatever you want to call it. I have started describing myself as like the golden retriever of whatever I do because I have to go around and say hello to everybody and make sure you know who I am. That's what I do.
I love that.
I know. I thought of it the other day and everyone laughed. So it's my new joke. Now you all know my secrets. But I'm really excited to be back after a while. A lot's happened, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I'm Jordan, New Digital Now's digital fundraising director, as well as the host and producer of Concepts of a Pod. I've researched and worked in digital political media for over 7 years, and I got tired of watching Democrats waste our best outreach channels in email and texting on scammy fundraising. So I teamed up with Shayna, who is the best field organizer I know, as opposed to the consultants in DC I was spending a little too much time around, and we launched the digital focus group to find out from donors like you what's missing from our digital programs. And we've been hard at work behind the scenes reading your comments to develop a media strategy that will turn the thoughts of grassroots supporters like you into action. And we've taken a little bit of a pause from the podcast to take some time to take in some of that feedback in light of the pace of the news recently and some of what we were seeing. I'll share some of these comments now. First off, someone said, I get so many unsolicited texts from a bazillion self-proclaimed progressive PACs, but I don't know how to evaluate them. Is there a resource we can check or you can create to find out who they are, which campaigns or causes they support, and how efficiently they use our money? And somebody else just straight up said, make better use of text messages, inform rather than having every text ask for donations.
Both incredibly wonderful and valid ideas.
Yeah, I can't believe that they have to be ideas, but here we are. And so we started Concepts of a Pod to close that media gap and use this incredibly powerful channel that allows us to reach out directly to supporters like you to actually inform you and organize all of us together with real information and connection. And it's really all thanks to you.
Yeah, we really, truly could not do any of this without all of our viewers, supporters, people who answer our focus groups, people who donate to us. This is something that has been done through collective action, something that Jordan and I have both been doing in our jobs for a very long time now. And it's really cool to see that our skills are still working and that all of you are so interested in being in this journey with us. So thank you. This is really all because of you. And we really hope that you'll still stay along for the journey as we're evolving based off of what all of you are telling us to do. That is what we are here to do. We want to help represent you and give you a voice that you may not have otherwise. We just can't say thank you enough. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And as you know, Concepts of a Pod started as just that, concepts of a plan. We knew we didn't have all the answers going into this, and we know it's been sporadic in the episode timing. And that's because we believe it's always better to do something than to sit around waiting for some pundit or consultant to unveil the perfect plan. So even if it's not 100% a finished product, we'd rather get out there and share what we have with you and take in your feedback to make what we're building better than wait to show it to you until it's all done. But the news has been happening so fast that it's been hard to keep up in the format of our weekly or so podcast. So we're going to be making some changes to the pod, call it Concepts of a Pod 2.0. And on this special episode, we're going to give you a sneak peek at how we use your comments to shape this strategy strategy. But first, we should talk about the latest news since our last episode. And a lot has happened, so we're really going to focus on the stories that have had the most lasting impact on democracy. Because it's been a little over 100 days now since Trump got back into office, and in addition to the markets crashing, we are in a constitutional crisis.
A lot has happened, and that's an understatement. I feel like there's not a whole lot else to say on that.
Yeah.
Like, for that subject, so much has happened. And I know you and we have every news app possible on our phones and keep up with everything, but they're throwing so much at us to try and, distract from what's really going on. And let's talk about what's really been going on.
Yeah, but first off, before we get into that, a question that really frames kind of the mess we're in the media. Did the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz get fired today, or did he get nominated as UN ambassador? Because I saw both. Yeah.
The answer is both.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with that, but
I saw this morning that Mike Waltz is getting fired. And then, a few hours ago, I think I sent you a screenshot saying that Mike Waltz is now going to be put for UN ambassador. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm a pretty articulate person, but I have so few words for what's going on right now because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I just want to know whether or not they realize that that's a Senate confirmable position, and we'll now be talking about Signalgate and Senate confirmation hearings.
Do you think they're smart enough to realize that? The answer is no. The answer is no.
God, yeah, but Joe Biden was too old and senile to be president, right? Anyway, moving on to 3 stories, all of which somehow happened on the same day, April 29th, which was Donald Trump's 100th day in office. And we started our day with a press briefing from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, where she was asked about a rumor that Amazon would be putting tariff labels on the website.
Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer who is going to have to pay for these policies?
This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American.
Here's the thing. You actually can see if the price of whatever you bought has been raised for years on Amazon. I have several things in my Amazon cart right now just because I put things in my cart to remind myself of things I will need to get, and it'll tell me when prices increase. They've been doing that for years before Trump decided to impose all of these tariffs. So no, it's not a hostile and political act. You're just mad that your lies about the American people not having to pay for the tariffs is going to be called out even further now.
Also, wasn't Bezos in the front row at the inauguration? Like, what is this?
That was going to be my next comment.
Like, what is this? I mean, this is the guy who stopped the Washington Post from endorsing Kamala Harris. Like, what are we doing here?
The thing is, I don't know what both sides expect at this point. You know what I mean? I don't understand what anybody expects, but also I don't expect anybody to expect anything. They're throwing so much out there, and you can see, the big bags under my eyes. I'm tired of keeping up with everything. It's part of my job and I enjoy doing it, but there's so much shit that is getting thrown around back and forth that you don't know what's going on anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, a White House press briefing used to be a place where you got real news. It's now become a straight up propaganda video. And what's scary to me, and leading into our next story, is whether or not Donald Trump is the creator or victim of his own propaganda. Because later that night in an ABC News interview, Donald Trump was asked about a photo in the Oval Office of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's knuckles with the tattoos on them, and the letters MS-13 photoshopped on there. And I guess we all assumed that he thought that was saying that was what the symbols meant. But no, watch this.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop. So let me
That
just...
was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there.
Okay, is he lying or does he not know? Can you tell?
All I'm going to say on this, and I feel like some people may relate to this, I'm just thinking back to a very similar conversation that I had in a previous relationship where they had specifically said something to me in writing. And I was like, why did you say that? And they're like, no, I didn't. I didn't say that. I'm like, it's literally right here in the text message. You said that really awful, mean thing. They're like, no, I didn't. That's not from me. Someone must have hacked into my phone and sent that. Literally reminds me of that. He's delusional.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the psychology of a malignant narcissist, but I mean, the president of the United States either doesn't know or is lying about whether or not an image is photoshopped as evidence to extrajudicially deport someone without due process of any kind in violation of an order from the Supreme Court, which is like, this is the history books. This is stuff that has not happened in this country before. And he's using racism to hide that fact.
He's seeing how far he can push the boundaries.
Yeah. And if you want any proof of that, just see, and I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but you need to watch it. One of truly the most disgusting things I've ever seen to come out of this country. A video from Donald Trump's rally on Tuesday night on the 29th. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but...
And the worst of the worst are being sent to a no-nonsense prison in El Salvador. Why don't you watch this? Watch this. Take a look.
These are still people, and they're not some freaking political pawn or political video you should be showing to people. That's not okay. That video with the music, but what?
Even if they are
gross.
criminals, even if those guys were criminals, which we don't know if they are because we don't have evidence. Either way, they could be, they could not be. And by the way, if they are, and if it's proven in a court of law, by all means, deport or lock them up by our law. Just follow the goddamn law. And the cruelty for the sake of cruelty, which, by the way, just so you know, that was 45 seconds of a 3-minute video. And it was one of the most painful things I've ever had to do, cutting that together to show you all. But you need to see how cruel your government is being to people right now.
I don't understand how a person could be so mean to another person. To put it in very plain, simple terms, I remember like one of the core principles you learn when you're in kindergarten or preschool is that you need to be kind to other people and that you should show kindness to other people and that no matter what someone else is going through, you should be nice to them. What happened to that with everybody? Well, shouldn't say everybody, with a good chunk of our country. I don't understand what happened to those ideals. Also, just to, play devil's advocate for a moment, if that's even what this is. Wasn't America built on the ideals of freedom and being able to express yourself and build something for yourself? Why all of a sudden is this administration deciding what can/can't be done.
Oh, yeah. Let's be clear, though. As much as America was founded on the ideals of freedom in writing, it was also built on the backs of people who very much were not free, and those were black people. They were slaves at the time, and then once America freed the slaves by a civil war, then racism was slowly combated with civil rights until it's kind of now clawed its way back. And let's be clear, that's what this is, because there actually is one other time in our history that a president defied a Supreme Court order, and it was Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears kicking out the Native Americans. So let's be clear, it's bigotry, it's racism, it's xenophobia. That's why people are letting them get away with it. And part of the reason, too, is because you'll have a lot of people and even some Democrats say it's a distraction to talk about this when the economy's tanking. Like, why are we spending more time on this than the tariffs? And I want to address that for anyone who has that question. I think actually Senator Chris Van Hollen, who really stepped up for his constituents when he went down to El Salvador to make sure that the Maryland man wrongly deported was still alive. And when he came back, he went on all 5 Sunday shows, but something he said on Meet the Press really stuck out to me.
Let me ask you about the reaction from within the Democratic Party. While some Democrats support you, others say this is not the issue that Democrats should be focused on. Governor Gavin Newsom of California calling Mr. Abrego Garcia's case, quote, the distraction of the day. He argues Democrats are playing right into the hands of President Trump, an issue he wants to be focused on. How do you respond to Governor Newsom?
I don't think it's ever wrong to stand up for the Constitution. And this is not about one man. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights for everybody. I think Americans are tired of elected officials or politicians who are all finger to the wind, what's blowing this way, what's blowing that way. And anybody who can't stand up for the Constitution and the right of due process doesn't deserve to lead.
Yeah, pretty much.
I could not have said that better. And I'm really proud of the, what seems like few but mighty Democrat electeds who are standing up. I've got 2 words for Gavin Newsom I don't think he would appreciate, so I won't say them here. But
he lost me when he went on podcasts before the California wildfires were even out, and then invited Steve Bannon on his podcast to go throw trans people under the bus for a few votes that he didn't even get.
As I said, there's very few, but the few who are very mighty right now and standing up for us. Chris Van Hollen, Cory Booker, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jasmine Crockett. There's some really, really wonderful people who are standing up. I also want to take a note to also recognize that most of the Democrat electeds who are the loudest right now and standing up for the most people are people of color. And a lot of, not most of the white electeds are not standing up for their people as much on the federal level. And that's really disappointing to see that we're still expecting everyone else to do all of the heavy work. I thought we were past that. I thought that's what we were fighting to, help with, and apparently not. It's been disappointing.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It really does feel like we're starting a moment here where that kind of complicity will not be tolerated, especially in the face of such incompetence out of the White House. And as for the economy and the tariffs, I know that if the economy tanks as badly as people are worried it's going to, that Trump and the Republicans and the Democrats who did nothing about it will be punished at the ballot box for that. But what we really need to be talking about, and all of us need to be raising our voices loud and clear, as those few Democrats you mentioned have, are the constitutional issues, are our rights, are the precedents that are being set that are undoing everything we know and love about the freedom that comes with our country, even when we disagree with what the government's doing. And we need to be talking about it nonstop, because if it is allowed to slip out of the news for even a moment that the Constitution has been trampled on, then he's getting away with it.
See, here's the thing. When Donald Trump says he's going to do something, he does it and he makes it happen. And actually a really cool and uplifting story I got to hear more in depth about today was exactly how the trigger provision in Illinois for banning abortion was removed a couple years ago. I'm very lucky to get to work for the woman who did that. But long story short, Illinois had a trigger provision that if Roe v. Wade was ever overturned, abortion would become illegal in Illinois, snap of a finger. And my boss decided that she was going to believe his words from the moment he said it in 2015, 2016, and got it passed underneath a Republican governor. Yeah, the whole story is really, really cool, very long, so I'm going to keep it to that, but that's just to show there are people who are fighting to protect things and make sure that, you know, when Roe did eventually fall, everyone in Illinois was protected. We removed the Hyde Amendment from our state, and we're protected from the Hyde Amendment. We need to start believing, and not just we, I know you and I do, Jordan, but other people, I understand it's hard, it's uncomfortable to realize and believe everything he's saying he wants to make happen, but he has been doing it, and he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and what's so important is he gets the things done that people don't push back on. But if people push back enough, he'll back off. He won't outright say I was wrong, but he will back off.
We've seen him back off a little bit on the tariffs and the economy, but like not enough. The economy is still going woo, you know, like a roller coaster.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if you've noticed, you know, who hasn't been around nearly as much recently? Elon Musk. Have you seen him around?
I heard that there's going to be a new CEO at Tesla. Just kidding. That's a joke. Whatever I can say to make sure that Elon Musk doesn't sue me.
All I know is that Donald Trump really runs the country like he ran his reality show, which is he has all of his underlings duke it out with their various agendas. And it really is, at the end of the day, all based on the popularity and the ratings. So that's where we have to hit him in the media, in the ratings, on TV, online, because that's what he cares about. And the only thing he is accountable to is his own ego. So we have to remember that, because you got to know your enemy in order to defeat them.
Yeah, you got to know your enemy. You got to know how to get under their skin. You know, you can't fight someone if you don't know them.
And on that note, there is one other story that you all probably got some scammy fundraising texts about, but may not have actually seen in the news. And it has to do with ActBlue and the fact that Trump is, quote unquote, threatening ActBlue. You've probably seen it, at least in one fundraising text, but it was very vague, and lo and behold, ActBlue is still working. So what gives? What really happened? Well, before I get into the text of what Trump's memo on ActBlue actually said, what did you hear about this story?
Well, it happened so quickly. I think it happened like in a couple of hours, essentially, while I was at work. So I didn't even realize the whole thing had happened until hours after it wasn't happening anymore. But I remember when I got home, I opened up Twitter. It's Twitter. And I remember I saw a couple of tweets from some people that I haven't seen tweet in a while. And they were like, just downloaded 3 years worth of ActBlue records for no reason, or just downloaded, you know, spent hours downloading tons of stuff from ActBlue and reaching out to ActBlue and telling all these people that they need to download their records. I was like, what happened? I texted you, Jordan, and you were like, nothing. Literally nothing happened. We're fine. And then, of course, all the little rats came out from the alleyways to try and get money to say, save us in case ActBlue gets shut down. ActBlue is not getting shut down.
Yeah, no, but that being said, what is in the kernel of truth to this is the terrifying way we all got paranoid about it, because what happened was somebody in the White House leaked to somebody that Trump was going to be issuing an executive order targeting ActBlue, whatever that meant. And I think the rumor that started to swirl around was the idea that they were going to be like those law firms that caved and just backed down, which is the craziest thing to me, because if you know anything about ActBlue, you know they are the lifeblood of the Democratic fundraising ecosystem, and their sole purpose for existing is to be the backbone of our grassroots fundraising. So they're not
gonna go away that easily. What?
They're not going to give that up. But anyway, even if they were, and the reason I know they're not is because we were invited to an exclusive call with their senior leadership where they told us that even if Trump did something that had any legal force, they would go to the ends of the earth to fight it in court. And let's be clear, they would win, because it is ludicrous. But we don't even have to go that far, because I actually saw the text of the presidential memo targeting ActBlue. And I want to share this with you guys, because this is something else. So basically, the memo is citing a House Judiciary Committee investigation, which is a bogus investigation, by the way. That in and of itself is based on a right-wing Twitter. Yeah. We've talked about this one. It's based on an Elon conspiracy theory that we've shut down. And then he directed the Attorney General to use all lawful authority to investigate these allegations and report back to him within 180 days. And keep in mind that this does not create any right enforceable at law. So it literally says in this thing that Trump signed himself, yeah, this doesn't actually do anything. I just want my people to look into some conspiracy theory that we already didn't. Can we just talk about how weak that is for Donald Trump to put his own name to?
But here's the thing. It's not weak to him because he knows that the people who are going to react to this only read the headlines. They're not going to read the fine print, or it's not even fine print. They're not going to read the body of the text. And this is how he won in 2016. And it's big part of how he won in 2024. So it's, weak in some ways, but also this is his game. This is how he won and how he's going to keep winning at the government, whatever that means to him. But that's what this is. He knows that people are going to flip out about it. And guess what? People did exactly what he wanted.
Oh, 100%. But I think the text of this order should be taken on its face too, because with the Supreme Court order and Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he didn't mince his words. He just fully violated Supreme Court orders. But in this, he's clearly scared to even look like he's actually doing anything that could do anything because he doesn't want this lawsuit. He doesn't even want it to go to the courts because if it goes to the courts, they'll find that Democrats and Republicans fundraise the exact same way.
He already knows that they do it the same way. But as I said earlier, he's trying to take away, this is a freedom. And as we've talked about, Citizens United many, many times, whether we like that money is speech or not, money is speech in this case. And he's trying to take that away from one group of people, his political enemies. That's not how this works. And who knew that Amy Coney Barrett was going to be the underdog hero of Trump's second term for us? But it's been really, really interesting seeing the Supreme Court and the decisions they've been making to protect the American people, because it really didn't seem like they were doing that before. This is the one nice thing I will say about the constitutionalists on the Supreme Court. They are constitutionalists, they are following the Constitution. And I never thought I would say that I am thankful for the constitutionalists.
Yeah, I mean, it's the legacy of Antonin Scalia, who, despite being a staunch conservative, remained good friends with Ruth Bader Ginsburg until he passed. And it just goes to show that you can disagree and still maintain your fundamentals. Then you can go full MAGA and stop caring about anything. But that actually leads into our supporter Q&A for today quite nicely. Somebody asked us, why isn't Congress doing their job? Since Congress isn't doing anything, why should I donate?
That is a great question. And you might not like that I'm going to say this, Jordan, but you don't have to, and you shouldn't be donating to places that aren't doing anything.
Why don't I like that you say that? I 100% agree with that statement.
I don't want to dissuade people from, I don't want them to think that we're not doing anything. I hope people can see that, like we said, we've been taking in all of your feedback to figure out what we can do best. Because we've talked about this a couple of times. Our format and our function, to a certain extent, has changed multiple times since the inception of New Digital Now and concepts of a pod, because things are changing so much, as we've talked a lot about, but we want to keep up with things.
Yeah, let's be clear. When we started the focus group, we thought that, first of all, we thought Joe Biden was going to be winning re-election. Then we thought Kamala Harris was going to win. And either way, we were just going to be fixing the text ecosystem. And then Trump won. And we realized that the issues go so much deeper than just the emails and texts. And as for Congress, it's really interesting because the Supreme Court has at least stood by the Constitution, but they don't have an enforcement mechanism. The people who enforce their laws answer to the president, which means that if the president won't follow Supreme Court orders, the only check and balance left is impeachment, and Congress needs to get off their butts and do something about that. But in the meantime, until we can get the do-nothings out of office and replace them with people who actually can do something, one of our supporters made a suggestion which we've talked about doing for a while, and I think is what we're trying to turn Concepts of a Pod into and what we will be in this new 2.0 iteration. Someone said, we need a war room with unelected officials who focus strictly on countering the misinformation and the propaganda in real time. And that is the goal of what we are trying to build. And we realize that making weekly podcasts that we record and then edit and stitch together and put out isn't the most effective way to do that, because news breaks in the time between when we record and edit. So what we're going to do, and this is all based on your feedback, is we're going to start making more news clips shorter, putting them out on YouTube in real time as they happen. And then once a week, we'll make the main podcast, we'll call it the Weekly Wrap. And it'll be a combination of all of the little news clips that happened throughout the week, like you saw us do earlier in the episode. And that way, we will be able to keep you updated with real news content in real time. And more importantly than that, by sending it to you over text, we will also get it into the YouTube algorithm, because we run the podcast on YouTube. And the reason we do that is because YouTube is where the right-wing media ecosystem took over in 2024. And by using our text messages to share YouTube videos with you, we can get our stuff to be even bigger in the algorithm. So we really need your help. And when you watch those videos in those texts, even just sitting there and watching them really helps us.
Yeah. Also, even just clicking on the link helps. Like Jordan said, we're going to do our best to push out news clips in the moment and then do a weekly wrap up of the really important things that will have a lasting impact. But, give us some grace as we try this out and figure this out, because it's all completely powered because of everything that you give to us.
Yeah, so what's next? We will be taking a little more time off as we build up the technology to get ready to make these rapid response news clips in real time. And we'll be back with our first clips and our first weekly wrap in early June, which, Shayna, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really when campaign season's going to start up anyway.
Yeah, that is definitely when a lot of campaign season's going to start up. May is when I talked about Illinois earlier. That's where I live and where I work. There's a lot happening and being shaken up right now in Illinois. And there's still plenty of announcements to be made by a lot of people around the rest of the country. And so in June is when we're going to really see a lot of people starting to fundraise, and you'll start seeing ads and text messages and all of that good stuff. Also, in the meantime, while we're on our break, let us know what guests you would like to see on the podcast. That's another thing we're going to start working towards. So we know that you guys have loved when we do have guests, and we want to have the guests that you know and want to see. And Pete Buttigieg, if you're watching this, I'm going to ask you again to please come on the podcast. I know I asked last time, but I'm going to ask with like a pretty please with a cherry on top this time. But if there's anyone else that you all would like to see on the podcast, please let us know. It could be literally anyone. We want to talk with everybody. Let us know.
Yeah, and thanks to the new format, we'll be able to do those interviews on a more flexible schedule, so it'll be even easier for us to be able to book those guests. But the one thing I do have to say before we go, and I hate to say it, but this work really is not easy, or unfortunately, it is not cheap to build all of our own technology from scratch to combat the misinformation being powered by right-wing billionaires. And we do all of this powered by donors like you in small increments, because we don't want to be beholden to any one big donor who can just tell us, do what I say or we're pulling your funding. We want to be free of that influence so that we are able to represent what you have to say to us, what each one of you has to say to us, and to be able to speak for the people as opposed to the wealthy. But
we're powered by people. We're powered by people. We are powered by you. We do this for you because of you.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like a lot, but compared to the billionaires, it's nothing. We need to raise $100,000 by the end of May in order to make this relaunch work, in order to respond to all of that news in real time. So if you like what you're seeing, if this sounds interesting to you, please, please, please consider chipping in. Even $1 helps to support this important work. Thank you so, so, so much for watching. Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you, and we will see you for the first weekly wrap in June.
Yeah, we will see you in June. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us for anything, to tell us comments or to give us a buck or two, or to let us know that you've been sharing our content and that your friends and family love it. We really love hearing that.
Yeah, we do. And thank you so much for all of your support. Again, we couldn't do this without you, and we'll see you next time.